I think you all already know that it's Father's Day, and before I get started, I just want to give my shout out to fathers. You probably don't know this, that this is the 102nd anniversary of Father's Day. And not surprisingly, it was a woman that started Father's Day. A woman by the name of Sonora Smart Dodd in Spokane, Washington. She's often thought of as the mother of Father's Day. So this is Father's Day, and as a father, I'd like to acknowledge to all the fathers and honor and bless anyone who has ever filled that role of father in people's life. Wishing you a happy Father's Day. I do. And so it is. Well, I have here in my hand something that we all have feared in our life at some time. In Texas, we might say it's something that gets your goat. Not money, but what? Change. Exactly, change. And now let's be honest, when we think about change, we usually think about changes that we want to make in our life, or we think about changes that we don't want to have in our life. And that's all well and good, but I want to suggest today that that's more a high school level kind of spiritual thinking. And I'd like us today to lift our consciousness a bit into more of a master's level program. Any of you that have taken master's level courses or have graduate degrees, one of the things that separates that level of training, that level of education from the other levels is that you have to learn to demonstrate it. You have to take the knowledge and apply it, and apply it, and apply it. So how do we do that? And perhaps the change that I'm talking about today is not really a change at all, but an upgrade. But an upgrade. You know, when you upgrade your computer, what do you get? You get more power, you get more use out of it, you get new ways of using the program, and we have to upgrade ourselves sometime. And I think what we need to focus on in our life is that we're always more than we think we are. We always have more power. We always have more courage. We always have more resources, both inner and outer resources, than we think we do. I've heard it said that the absence of evidence isn't the evidence of absence. Most of the time, but we live our life, we relate to the conditions in our life, the conditions and the circumstances. You know, if I just had more money, if there was just a healing in my body, if I could just find that right relationship or that right job, then I'd be happy. Or maybe we're in a relationship and we just say, you know, if that person could just change a little bit, you know, if they could just pick up their clothes or wash the dishes or so on and so forth, then I'll be happy. Well, today, I want us to explore 3 questions. And the first question coming up here is, what is God's idea for my life? Now, you're going to hear more about this when Michael Beck was here. I borrowed this idea. I think this is the way he expresses it. But what is God's idea for my life? What is that higher part of me? What is that idea for my life? And the second question is, what is the kind of life I would really love? What would I really love for my life? And the third question is, what do I need to be? What do I need to be? How do I write it? What do I need to be to live the life I love? So these are the 3 questions, but often we focus on, well, what if something doesn't change? What if it doesn't change? And, you know, what are we going to do? And if you're like me, you know, we try to fix it. I'm a guy. We want to fix things. But I think when we listen to Spirit, it says, no. That's not the way it is in the infinite. That's not the way it is in the higher realm. That when we can change these questions, then we change the interaction we have with the infinite. So this higher question, what is God's idea for my life? Ask that right now, just for a second. What's God's? What's God's? What's life trying to present to me? To ask that question when you get up in the morning. to ask that question when you go to bed at night, to continually ask that question. And what happens, we put our mind on a higher frequency to receive the answer. That's what we're looking for. Now, don't get me wrong. There are some times that we need to make changes in our life. That there are things going on in our finances, or perhaps we have a child that's out of control. Well, not my child, but we have a child that's out of control. And we do need to make some changes in that life. But we know, as good truth students, that that's only temporary unless we change the condition underlying the belief. And that belief that so often is that we think that circumstances control our life. You know, I think this is what Albert Einstein meant when he said, you can't solve a problem on the level that created the problem. That we have to get a higher thought. To move forward with any kind of passion for living the life we love, we have to get a new relationship with the conditions in our life. You know, we're always in a dance from where we are to where we want to be. And that's a part of just being alive. That's a part of just being a human being. But you know what we want to do with ourselves is we want to have a conversation that's generative, that it generates things in our life that we want, and not just be reactive to circumstances and conditions. You know the difference between a creator and a reactor? It's just where you place the seed. It's the same, just where you place the seed. The land of circumstances always yields to our growing awareness of who we are. You know, we have to escape the prison, you might say, of our senses and to cast the beam out of our own eye to get a clearer vision. We have to face down paradigms. Y'all know about paradigms? Heard about paradigms? Paradigms are conditions. And you know, an interesting thing about paradigms, we didn't really create them. They were kind of given to us by family, by peers, by conditions that have happened in our life. But these paradigms run everything in our life. Our money, our relationships, where's how we relate to the world. And these paradigms have to be faced down, to be looked at in a new way. You know, Webster said a paradigm is a model that's copied. And we keep doing the same thing over and over again. Paradigms like this. Now, I grew up at 1139 Hoke Smith, and we heard this. Money doesn't grow on trees. So y'all were there too, huh? Or how about this paradigm that was the way the world thought up until good old Columbus, that we had a flat world. They believed that. But these paradigms, they run our life in ways that we don't really know until we begin to face them down. So how do we do that? Well, I want to tell you a story about a man named Chris. And Chris has ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. And Chris has a lot of dreams in his life. He probably has only a year or so to live. And here's what he says. He said, if you don't make an impact on someone, then it's all really a waste. You know, I think Chris has got a handle on part of today's talk title, if not now, when? When are you going to face down these paradigms? When are you going to step out and really live the life you love? When are you going to answer that question, what is God's idea for my life? You know, Chris has hundreds of things on his bucket list. And he says though, there's one thing I really want to do. Is I just want to make people smile. And you know, one thing that Chris does is he buys donuts and he takes them to kids that maybe have never had a donut. And he just likes to see them smile. And Chris is doing a documentary called The Blessing of My Disease. And what he's doing, he's interviewing other people with ALS. And you know what he's finding out? That those people too are not letting the conditions of their life control their life. Chris said, if I have enough time, I'll change the world. Chris is changing the world one smile at a time. He's not letting his body that's paralyzed in a wheelchair control his life. He's really looking at how he can make a difference. He's decided to live his life now, not based on the conditions where he's at in his life. And you know what? You and I, if we live another 365 days, you're going to create a life. You have no way of not creating a life. If you live another year, you're going to create a life. And I ask you today, just ask yourself that question. What is the life that I really want to live? Not a life built on conditions or circumstances. Not if I had enough money or if I was younger or this or that. That you really step forward in creating a life that you want to live. And you do that by having a vision and changing that inner dialogue. Changing that question that what would I really love for my life? Not what I think I can get, but what do I really, really love for my life? What will it, and I always like that, I love this term I heard years ago, to move beyond a 2x4 linear thinking of the way that my life is, that I'm more expansive than that. I'm greater than I think I am most of the time. But so often, and we hear about transformation, that we want transformation in our life, but it usually ends up with just words. It might come like this, a newscast, beep, beep. We interrupt this broadcast of Fred's life for these words. I am a spiritual being living a human experience. And we love that term when we hear it, but often we just say, oh yeah, I'm a spiritual being living a human experience, or a nice human experience, and we just let it go there. But we want to transfer that out into the day-to-day living that we do. We want to shift to a boots-on-the-ground kind of living, where we really engage life in a new way. And I'll give you a word that we can do that. We live life with affirmation. You heard me right, affirmation. Not affirmation, but affirmation. That I'm living from that life that I want to live, not trying to get to that life. And that changes everything. That stares down the paradigms, that lifts you in a different frequency, a different vibration in day-to-day living and interacting with people. It's a fundamental change that puts you on the road to where you want to be, not from where you are based on the conditions that you are. You then begin to live inside that idea that I am a spiritual being having a human experience, not trying to get to it. You know, rather than making a statement of abundance, that we really look for ways to make it happen. And so often we say, what do I need to do? What do I need to do? But the question that we want to change it to is, what do I need to be to live the life that I really want to love? That beingness. What do I need to be? Do I need to be more loving? Do I need to be forgiving? Do I need to be a better listener? What do I need to be to come from the life that I want to live? Now, you know, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong in affirming that I'm a spiritual being when we want to drop back and not feel that way. There's nothing wrong in saying that all my needs are met when there's no evidence of that. There's nothing wrong in saying that I'm whole and complete when my body is not experiencing that at this time. There's nothing wrong in saying that I'm peaceful when confusion has hijacked my mind. There's nothing wrong in saying that I am courageous when we want to pull back in fear. These affirmations, they're well and they're good and they're helpful, but we want to take it up a notch. Take it up to that master's level where we actually demonstrate it. That's the game changer. That we want to be abundance, not try to get to abundance. What are the qualities that I need to have to live an abundant life? What do I need to be? Just sets us on a path to a higher consciousness. It puts you, what I've begun to learn is that it puts us on a recognition a vibration, a cellular vibration in our own beingness that we are really more than we think we are. When we can ask those important questions. You know, Disney, they have what they call Imagineers. We can be questioneers and live from these questions, not so much trying to get to the answers. Speaking and living from the experience that you want to create in your life is kind of like a spiritual stand your ground law. That we stand our ground and we stare down those things that want to keep us away from that. And one of the ways that we do that is we begin to notice what we're noticing. Think about that. Just begin to notice what you're noticing. Notice what gives you life. Notice what constricts your life. How about at work? That person that, they just always seem to rub you the wrong way. Begin to notice how you think about them, and perhaps that's why it plays out that way. Begin to notice when you're in the grocery line. This is a great one. You've gone to the 12-item line, and you look in front of you, and the person there's got 22 items. Notice what you're noticing when you look at them. Begin to notice how you're noticing when you're driving, and that person doesn't quite drive the way that you want them to drive, huh? Notice what you're noticing at that time. Is that giving me energy? Is that lifting me up, or is that constricting me? Now, I have a daughter, 12-year-old daughter, Lily, and when she was about 4 years old, we were driving somewhere, and somebody did something, I don't know what it was, and I made a comment of some sort. And a few minutes later, Lily, in her sweet little voice in the back seat, says, "Daddy, are you ever the jerk?" Begin to notice that in a different way. So if you ever really wonder what it would really feel like to live a creative life of love and joy and peace, what would it smell like? What would it taste like? What would it really feel like to live that kind of life? And that's what I'm offering to you today in these 3 questions that can lift you up to a higher spiritual maturity, you might say. You know, isn't that why you come to church here? For a spiritual maturity? Isn't that why you do your prayer and meditation? To become more spiritually mature? Well, I know it is for me, and I suspect it is for you too. I know it's not easy to go from beyond the manure to the mature. But what do we know about manure other than it smells bad? What do we know? It's fertile. It helps grow things. When we have these things in our life that we want to call that not so great, that we begin to experience in a different way. That we are right here and know that the ground that I'm standing on is holy ground. That I can take what's happening in my life today and transform it. If you have a crisis in your life, I invite you, don't miss the juiciness of it. Because something is trying to emerge. Something is trying to put you on a new frequency. When you're spiritually mature, you turn your back on those things that say, this was bad. Or why is this happening to me again? Or I was wrong. That we open our mind and our hearts to new possibilities. There was a psychologist, and I apologize, I cannot remember his name, and I'll look for it, but about 30, 40 years ago, he was having tremendous success, and his peers said, "Why are you having such success with your clients, and we're still going around and around?" He said, "Well, I just tell all my clients to say this every day and to really live it, that every day in every way, I'm getting better and better. And every day in every way, I'm getting better and better." Will you say that with me now? In every day, in every way, I'm getting better and better. And every day, in every way, I'm getting better and better. And not just let those be words, but to let them be the Word of God. To make them be an affirmation, to live from every day in every way, I am getting better and better. When things come up, that we can allow that to be our willingness to look beyond the light. Look beyond the darkness for the light. That's how we live spiritual maturity. St. Paul tells us that don't get tired of doing what is right. In due season, you will reap if you don't give up. So take the next step into living the life you love. To release the depression and embrace an impression that I'm more than I think I am, that I'm more than circumstances and conditions, and to begin to welcome a new formation in your mind, a new foundation in your living, that I'm only here for God. Every day in every way, I'm getting better and better. Well, I have my ticket for Michael Beckwith, and I'll be here. And I was at Agape a couple of weeks ago. And I've been talking to Michael over the last few months. He's helping me on a project. And I told him, I'll be there and so on. And I told him I bought up all the tickets. I'm scalping them. But here's what he said. I bought a book when I was out there called The Answer Is You. And he said, the energy of your thought forms radiate out into your life. And universal law responds. The energy of your thought forms radiate out into your life, and universal law responds. Why does universal law respond? Come on.
For the right vibration.
Yeah, it has to. That's what universal law does. It has to respond. Have you ever thought, what is spiritual law? Spiritual law is the way things work. Well, Chris has the urgency of his disease to move him along, but you and I have something that's calling us to. That we begin to notice what is our longing and what's our discontent. What's our longing and what our discontent? And we have to amp up that realization that I am more than I think I am. That nothing's going to change unless I make a mature decision to change how I'm relating to the circumstances and conditions of my life. And then you know what we have to do? We have to write it down, and we have to go into action. We have to write it down, and we have to go into action. Action is where things change. This is what Charles Fillmore wrote in 1889 in the first Unity magazine called Modern Thought. He says, action goes further than speculation. It changes possibilities or simple probabilities into realities. Friends, even God can't steer a parked car. So we have to go into action. Well, I never feel complete in speaking if I don't bring in my boy Jesus, our way shower and the things. And one of the great things he said is, ask and it will be given unto you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door shall be open. So I ask you today, he tells us on good authority that ask and it will be given unto you. What am I to be spiritually mature? To ask that and to seek. To seek what it is you love for your life. What if that you seek, that you want for your life, what if it's also seeking you? And all you have to do is to lay out the welcome mat and to be responsive and to knock. To knock at the door. What is the life I really want to love? And that perhaps the blessings are just on the other side of that something that you are facing. Well, friends, now's the time to tell that something that you're facing that it's facing something greater. There's a difference between talking about something, talking about spiritual transformation, and actually living spiritual transformation as if it's already happening. There's a difference between I want it and I have it. And that difference is you. And you, and you, and you, and you, and me, and you. So God bless you.